It's the ones before the big one. How's everybody doing? I'm Jay Elson, and this is Midco Motorsports. Well, not only do the 360 Knoxville Nationals and Capitani Classic mark the start of the most thrilling two-week period in sprint car racing, but they also serve as a dress rehearsal of sorts for the sport's premier event. The recap of this year's tune-up is this week's A-Feature. 42 cars participated in night one of qualifying Thursday, but one of them stole the show. Ryan Giles led all 20 laps for his 9th career win at Knoxville, which earned him a check for $3,000 and also secured a spot in Saturday's A-Main. Things would be much more competitive the following night. Pole setter Davey Heskin took command early, but things heated up on lap 17. Brian Brown, James McFadden, and Gio Scelzi all ready to pounce. Brown does right at the line, but it gets wiped out moments later. Scelzi hops over McFadden's tire and rolls into the wall. That would bring out the caution. That worked out really well for McFadden. The Australian gets by both Brown and Heskin on the ensuing restart, and unlike Brown's, his pass would hold up. McFadden finishes it off to earn his first ever win at Knoxville Raceway. On to Saturday now, and it proved to be a rough night for a couple of guys with local ties. MSTS 360 regular Cody Ledger saw his night come to an end in the C-Main. Ledger's shaken up by this wreck, but otherwise okay. Sioux Falls native Clint Garner took an even harder tumble in the B. Fortunately, Garner also escaped without injury. No such issues for the guys at the front of the main event, which ultimately became a rematch between McFadden and Brown. The 9M got to the front from the pole, but the 21 stayed hot on its heels all night. Brown got side by side with McFadden several times, but the Aussie able to fend him off all the way to the flag. James McFadden best Brown again to claim his first 360 Knoxville Nationals crown and the $15,000 payday.
I just knew that he was going to run the top, so the bottom was fast. I just kept missing it a little bit, and that was enough for him to get, next to us. So I just decided to pound the top and try and block him a bit, and it worked out.
The 410s took over Sunday for the 8th annual Capitani Classic. Brian Brown found himself in a battle at the front yet again, only this time it was with David Gravel. Lap 8, Gravel finds the bottom to overtake Brown for the lead. That set off a thrilling back and forth, which saw the two swap that top spot 3 more times over the next 10 circuits. But it would be Gravel that had it last. He switches lines to complete the final pass with 5 to go and goes on to capture his 4th career victory at Knoxville, while Brown settles for 2nd for a 3rd consecutive night. The 59th Annual Knoxville Nationals is set to kick off Thursday, and there's no one better to preview the event than Tony Bokhoven, the longtime voice of Knoxville Raceway, will join us next.
Midco Motorsports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Speedway.
For nearly 6 decades, the best sprint car drivers in the world have ascended on Central Iowa to take their shot at capturing the prestige and prize money that accompanies the title of Knoxville Nationals champion. Midco SN's Brian Shawn is in Knoxville and joins us now to preview this year's event with help from a special guest.
Hello and welcome to the sprint car capital of the world, Knoxville Raceway in Knoxville, Iowa for the 59th annual NOS Energy Drinks Knoxville Nationals. A beautiful day to start things off, and joined by a familiar voice here at Knoxville Raceway, the track announcer here for the last 23 years, Tony Bokhoven. I don't want to age you, Tony, but does it feel like it's been
Well,
that
I'm
long?
only 24, so. No, it's went really fast. Someone asked me a couple days ago how long I'd been here, and when I said 23, my heart raced for just a second. It's amazing how fast time goes, and the people that I used to look up to when I was a kid as announcers, some of them are in this place now in the Hall of Fame, and so it's just been a really cool experience.
So Coming into this every year, these 10 days have to be extra special to you. Now, you're here every week, so you know what it's like, but at the same time, when everybody starts funneling into town, it's a totally different deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, because I think, since we're here every week, we often take for granted what we have here. And so when people come to town and they start oohing and awing over some things, you're like, yeah, that is pretty cool, and to see the pride that everybody has in the Hall of Fame and in the racetrack and in the community of Knoxville is really neat.
Are you surprised how much of an event this has become off the track? There are so many things that happen now away from the Speedway that's really made it, I think, a family-friendly event for all 4 days people are here, or 10 days if they come out for the 360s.
And I think that's what makes this whole thing work, is that, Cappy used to say that the Knoxville Nationals is more than just a race. It's an event for the fans. And so, you have to come up with things to do for the fans during the day, right? And so, like last night, there was a kickoff celebration downtown where all the retailers had a little getting together out on the sidewalks and stuff. So there's lots of things like that. Then there's things that the races that happen in Oskaloosa leading up to this week, and so all of that coming together, it's pretty special.
So let's talk a little bit about this year's Nationals. Over 100 cars entered. It's been a really strange year from the standpoint, Tony, that there's been a lot of parity across all the circuits, whether it's been here at Knoxville, World of Outlaws, out east, out west. I think that sets up some intrigue where maybe there isn't just one or two favorites, but a lot more.
Yeah, I would tell you that there's easily 5 or 6 guys that could contend for this race on Saturday night, and then there's probably that many more that if the brakes fall their way could be right there in contention, and that's something that's different. In the past, I think coming into this race, everybody always thought, well, it's Donnie Schatz's race to lose, right, because he was so dominant, and this year it's been different. When you think about Brad Sweet winning 12 times this year, and Donnie's only won 7. I mean, that's a complete role reversal there. And then you have some guys like James McFadden, who wasn't planning to come here to race at all this year, and the deal with Casey comes together, and he's won 5 races in the last 8. So, I mean, there's just a lot of different characters in this event this year that are contenders. And then there's some local guys. Brian Brown, obviously, from a local perspective, is probably the most likely to contend for the win, but Terry could be right there, and there's some other guys. So it's not just an outlaw race this year in my mind. You have Lance DeWeese coming here this year. He was here earlier this season for a couple nights and ran really well. So you give him a little more time on the track, and he'll be right in the mix.
And a Gio Selzy that comes out here and does what he does, and he's not the youngest driver to ever win here, too. It's amazing to think the talent and the depth in the field.
When I was 17, I was certainly not planning on contending for wins at Knoxville Raceway, but he drives like a veteran. Very calculated, very smooth, very patient for a 17-year-old. He has patience of a well-oiled champion. So it'll be fun to watch him.
Who do you enjoy watching race the most? Is there a guy that you look at and you're like, man, that guy is just a special guy, the way he goes about his business?
Well, I don't know if it's just one person, but for me, it's more about. I actually like watching some of the small teams because they try really hard, and it means a lot to them. It's not just they're not just coming here saying, okay, we're a small team, we may not contend. They're working just as hard as the big teams are, and so that's really fun. As an announcer, I'm not supposed to have any favorites, right? But in my heart of hearts, there are a couple guys that I would really like to see win. But I think what would be most important for me is to see a local guy win this race. It's not happened, and Terry's come very close in the past. Brian Brown has been very close in the past. So I think if a local could win this race, it'll change the complexion.
All right, Tony, appreciate the time. Thanks for coming over, man. Have fun this week. You do a great job.
Well, thank you very much for being here. The weather's going to be perfect this week. Everybody seems to be in good humor, so I think it's going to be a fun 4 days.
Appreciate the time, man.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brian. Should be 4 great days of racing in Knoxville this weekend, and we'll have a complete recap of the 59th annual event coming up on next week's season finale of Midco Motorsports. Well, the Advantage RV Modified Tour crowned its champion Sunday night in Watertown. We'll show you those highlights after this. And welcome back. Well, Saturday's rain showers in Aberdeen put a bit of a damper on the final weekend for the Advantage RV Modified Tour, but it also sweetened the stakes for Sunday's finale at Casino Speedway in Watertown. That's where Shane Sabraski and Dan Ebert would essentially go head-to-head in a 40-lap dash for the title. Neither of those guys would really push for the win in this one, but there was 3 that did. Front row starters Jeremy Nelson and Andy Jones were 2 of them. They went at it for the first couple of circuits before Jones got into 73 past the 4 on the outside. Jones would keep command until he got into traffic. Nelson started to slowly reel him in at that point, but so did Johnny Broking. The number 5 starter picked off Nelson first, then gets Jones a couple of laps later. That would be the last pass of the night at the front as Broking drives on to become the 5th different winner on this year's tour. Jones and North Dakota's Tyler Peterson rounded out the top 3 on Sunday. Sabraski, meanwhile, finished 1 spot ahead of Ebert in 4th, which was good enough to clinch the Tour Championship. The annual Hobby Stock Special headline Friday show at Rapids Speedway. We'll pick things up, though, with a B-Mods feature. Rock Rapids' own Derek Van Veldhuizen challenging pole setter Trevor Tesh early, but the 21T able to hold on thanks to a bobble from the 20 between turns 3 and 4. Persistence pays off later, though. Van Veldhuizen takes advantage of a restart to overtake Tesh, and he would hold it down from there to earn his first win of the season at his hometown track. Fast forward to the hobby stocks now, 21 of them gunning for the heightened top prize of $500. The last thing 20 of them wanted to see was Dustin Gulbranson at the top of the grid, but that's exactly what they got. Gulbranson, who came in with 4 wins in his previous 6 starts at Rocky, wasn't about to let that opportunity go to waste. The 6 car settled in right off the start and never let up. A flurry of cautions kept it closer than it otherwise might have been, but in the end, Gulbranson rolls to win number 5 in Rock Rapids.
When you're up front and you get caution after caution, it's a little frustrating, but you just, I don't know, I guess I've raced a lot of years, and you just know you got to be patient. You can't let them frustrate. You just got to keep hitting your marks lap after lap, and if you keep doing that, the chances of somebody getting around you aren't very good. You just got to keep racing smooth, and that's kind of what we did tonight.
3 drivers carried winning streaks into Friday's show at River Cities. Find out which ones managed to keep things rolling when we come back. After winning the first 2 NOSA sprint features of the season at River Cities, Mark Dobmeyer hit a bit of a dry spell. Dynamite was shut out of victory lane for 6 weeks before finally finding his way back at Red River Valley on July 14th. He notched another W at Dakota 2 weeks later, and Friday, Dobmeyer looked to continue his resurgence in Grand Forks. Another guy that was looking to keep things rolling was Midwest Modified's points leader Lance Schill. No such luck for him, though. Battery issue shortened Schill's race to just 2 laps. That opened the door for someone else, and that someone turned out to be Tim Berg. Berg looked to have problems of his own when smoke started pouring out the back end, but the 4 wasn't stopping. Berg held off a hard-charging Cole Haugland to get his first ever Midwest Modifieds win by a mere 4 1/1000ths of a second. The NOSA sprints were up next. Austin Pierce attempting to stretch his win streak to 4, but his luck would be even worse than Schill's. The 2A gets tangled up with the 42 of Rick Bates on the front stretch, ending the night for both of them. Jack Croker would jump out front on the ensuing restart, setting a blistering pace around the top, but that would come back to bite him. Croker slides over in turn 2, handing the lead to Dobmeyer. One real challenge for the 13 after that. Wade Nygaard takes his shot through the middle, but Dobmeyer was having none of it. He slams the door to get his 3rd feature win at RCS. The night's late model feature would pit a current RCS Hall of Famer against a future one. The 50-year man, Tom Corcoran, still fighting for that first win of 2019, and he'd battle Bill Mooney wheel to wheel for much of the first 10 laps. But while those two focused on each other, Brad Sang quietly worked his way into the conversation, and the 12S eventually became the story. Sang sneaks past Corcoran for the lead here, and he wouldn't look back. Brad Sang picks up a 3rd straight win at River Cities and the outright lead in the points.
Well, we've had some success the last few weeks, so when you have success, you got to start back a little bit, and we started 8th tonight, and I really didn't know what to think. So basically, for the most part. It was a learning night in our whole team, and we just threw some stuff at the car, and it worked pretty good.
Tseng had a chance to go back-to-back Saturday as he and the NLRA late models made their way to Devils Lake. Tseng couldn't have asked for a better starting spot as he led the first 7 laps from the pole. But his run up front would come to an end on a restart with 18 to go. Defending series champ Dustin Strand vaults from 3rd to 1st with a huge move around the top. Tseng would ultimately fall back to 5th, leaving Shane Edgington to try and reel in Strand, but it never happened. The 71 cruised to its 6th late model win of the season.
First few laps, I kind of thought maybe we had the car a little too free, and Shane and Brad kind of got away from me there for a while, and we got that yellow, and I was packing the top, and it was kind of marbly up there, and I figured that was my only prayer. I was either going to be a hero or a zero, and we stoked it in there, and it stuck, so that was pretty awesome.
The 111 of Jason Halverson led the 20-lap Midwest Modified feature to green, but number 3 starter Bailey Cousins would reel him in pretty quickly. The 7B built a decent lead over the next few laps, but a caution brought him back to the pack. Cousins would get a good jump on the ensuing restart, but a big pileup in turn 1 slows him down again, and this time it cost him. Cousins lost the lead a short time later, and that set up a pretty good show between Cole Haugland and Austin Hunter. Those two stayed pretty much side by side for the final 10 laps, but it would be Hunter edging out Haugland for the win. If you want to race a 410 Outlaw Sprint car, you're going to have to get familiar with wings. Coming up, find out how one North Dakota racer is putting her knowledge of aerodynamics to good use.
Midco Motorsports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Dakota Speedway.
Wings can come in all shapes and sizes, and of course on this show we tend to focus a lot on the ones found on sprint cars. But we found a young racer who knows a thing or two about wings of another sort. Midco SN's Marty Mueller has more in this week's Inside Track, presented by Dakota Speedway.
Sabrina Hockenson and Jane Hastings, 6th and 7th.
Some wings can take you soaring to new heights. Others, like in racing, keep you planted firmly on the ground. Sabrina Hockenson's Outlaw Sprint car has 2 wings, and those are something she's dreamed of having for a long time.
My dad raced sprint cars before I was born, and he took me to my first sprint car race in Fargo when I was 7, and I looked at him and I said, I want to race these one day. I said, all right, well, you got to start somewhere, so we started go-karts at 9 years old.
From go-karts, Sabrina eventually found her way into a sprint car in 2015. And once she tightened down those belts, she knew she was hooked.
They look cool, they sound cool, they're loud, they're fast. I think the closest thing I can relate it to, especially on the drop of the green flag, is probably like maybe a rocket launch. Like you stand on the throttle and it puts so much pressure on you and it's like just an adrenaline pump.
Somewhere in between go-karts and sprint cars, Sabrina had another adrenaline-filled life event that had her instantly hooked. This one involves wings too, but not the kind that help you slide around corners on a Friday night.
Growing up in Bemidji, I was right next to an airport, so I watched planes come in and out every single day and just wanted to give it a shot. So when I was 12, I went up for my first ride with the Young Eagles organization, and he let me take controls once we were up in the air and kind of turn it and see what it was like a little bit, and I knew it. I was like, this is what I want to do. I love it.
At just 12 years old, Sabrina started searching for aviation schools, and her hunt would land her at the University of North Dakota, one of the premier flight schools in the country. Being close to home has allowed Sabrina to keep racing, while also working as a flight instructor as she pursued her degree.
It's a lot of fun, especially when you get a brand new student who maybe like me has 0 hours in an airplane, never been in an airplane, and they're just excited and ready to go on every flight, and they get out of the airplane after they landed the airplane themselves a few times, and they got this big smile on their face, and you think this is what I'm here for.
Helping others achieve their dreams seems to be the Hockenson way. With the support of her family and those closest to her, Sabrina has been able to chase her two winged passions.
My dad started me out in this. He was at every single race I was at. My mom was there sometimes, and it's hard for her to come to races because it's a little scary for her, and I understand that, but you know, she comes when she can, and I always appreciate that. And most recently, my boyfriend has shown up, and he's been at every race this year, and he's huge help. I couldn't do this without him this year.
Great support is always a theme in the homegrown racing community. With hers, Sabrina hopes she won't have to give up her love for things with wings anytime soon.
Yeah, it's great. Speed, wings, you know, everything, it's great.
Now again, that was Marty Mueller reporting. As the racing season winds down, Sabrina's future remains in question. She recently finished school and is hoping to find a career in the corporate or charter aviation field. But regardless of where she lands, it seems pretty apparent that winged vehicles will be what gets her there. All right, that is our time for this week. We'll leave you the quick look at what's on tap around the region here over the next few days. Hope to see you back here next Wednesday night for the season finale of Midco Motorsports.